Wow, Lynn, you're spoiled. Thank you.
Yeah, you really are.
Like a butternut squash bar. I mean,
I'm
don't want
gonna-
them.
I'll
so
be here,
good.
but I'm gonna go off camera so you guys don't have to watch me eat my oatmeal on the giant screen there. But I'll be here.
We'll miss you. Oh, geez. You changed my password. Hold on, everyone.
Very sarcastic this morning, and he did bring it in a little bit. I don't know why. Probably the lack of sleep and staying up late at night watching select board meetings.
That'll do it.
Staying up and also meetings that seem consistent with one another.
It might bring one to sleep.
All right, we'll start off our meeting with a full agenda. It's 7:07. And let's start with any public comment or general announcements.
There are no attendees, and I've received no public comment.
Okay, anyone from the commission have any off-agenda topics they wanted to raise this morning?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move to the minutes. I had a chance to review the minutes, but if anyone wants to put them up on screen, we can go through them now.
I had no corrections to the minutes.
Neither did I.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Great.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
All right. We will vote now in favor of approving the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All right, unanimous agreement. Thank you, Dave. Great minutes. Okay, then we will, if I can just figure out what tabs my agenda is on, I just had it. There it is. Okay, conservation planner update.
So I just got a couple of very quick updates. First, exciting on the town staff end, we have a new planning technician. After several month vacancy since Hannah Hartman stepped down to move to Portland, accept a job there. Maybe you'll get a chance to meet Colin today. We'll see, but you'll definitely see him on the way out. Colin comes to us with a great background in GIS. They're really exciting to me and should be to this committee because that's really expanded our capacity. And I was able to pull Colin in to long-standing project on the back burner, which is really getting going on that ERF passive map
Nice.
reprioritization update. So I've been working with Colin this last week to get everything assembled in our GIS file and get the analysis started on that. So hopefully with that expanding capacity, we'll be able to have some updates for you to share this spring or sooner. We'll see kind of how long the analysis takes, but I'm excited that that project's moving.
I had a very nice conversation with Colin the other day. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're really excited. So then second update is a quick follow-up on conversation from last time. We talked briefly, just pull up the map, about the recent property sale on Brownell Mountain. And the question was,
Can you share
will,
screen?
yeah, I'm looking about to
Dude,
share.
you're seeing, okay, sorry.
No problem, absolutely.
How do you? I can see it.
Okay, so property sale off Lincoln Road, Brownell Mountain area, right here. And the question was, this is a currently undeveloped lot. If there is development proposed for a single family home, will this come back to the Conservation Commission? And my initial assumption was yes. But I dug into that a little bit since the last meeting, and the answer is slightly more complex. So you have a vested right to put a home on your site. So looking at what is allowed directly through an administrative permit versus what requires a discretionary permit, that's what will determine whether this comes to the Conservation Commission for review. So it most likely will come down to what is the proposal from whoever bought this site. So if there is a proposal that is complex and is likely to disturb natural resources such that the habitat disturbance assessment would be required, or that there's more clearing than the threshold for a discretionary permit, then it would it would bump up to that threshold. It would come to the Conservation Commission. However, if what's proposed is non-controversial and really in keeping with what the intent of the bylaws are in the ARZD, which is to encourage, limited clearing home sites close to the road. So if there's proposed, half acre within clearing, down by the road, short driveway, not impacting any of or natural resources, steep slopes, etc., then it would be permitted directly through an administrative permit, and it would not come to the Conservation Commission.
Okay. Can I ask a follow-up question? Regarding the access road that comes off of that
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
I mean, that's still going to remain there with an easement because that is an existing
Correct.
easement. But that's not a town easement,
Correct.
so,
Is that why it's not visible on this map?
You can see it vaguely here.
but it's not like a line or.
Right, we have a
uh,
trail there.
It's not like a trail like, yeah, so if we wanted. If for some reason it came through with administrative permit, we didn't get a chance to have a conversation about it during discretionary permit review. I just want to make sure we're clear on our options. We could approach them at any time about getting an easement, but how does that work if there's already an easement for another party? Does it become a shared easement? Do we have to get permission from both?
That's a great question. I think it would be completely independent, as far as my understanding, and that it really fits in with the conversation of the active strategy for the ERF.
Yeah.
What's the conversation and what are the objectives that you're trying to accomplish? And then you're going to approach landowners and bring some resources to bear potentially to make a purchase of an easement, if needed,
Okay.
to make something like that happen. So I think in this case, there's an existing access road. If the town wanted to negotiate access over that road, the existence of an easement between the landowner and I think it's Verizon, wouldn't, that legal document would be completely separate than anything the town could potentially negotiate.
I would also just point out that this property does not immediately abut the town property. It's close, but it's not, you would still have to,
Verizon or whoever, we'd have to talk to.
yeah, you would have to arrange for passage through at least one other property. So it's not even the end of the story on that, which is just,
Right,
strange layout of that.
right. It's a good point. Yeah, I don't know how likely any landowner on here would be to negotiate, but for example, a property like this could potentially give you complete
Yeah.
connected access.
Just seems like such an opportunity to have a maintained access road for the telecommunications.
It may very well be though that Verizon wouldn't want people on that road.
It may very well be, yeah.
It may, that even though it looks good on paper,
Right.
it may not be reality. We just don't
All of
know.
our challenges with maintaining trails, like maybe we could use a maintained gravel road or dirt road. Anyway, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
And keep the update short and sweet today.
okay. Speaking of which, any update on the bridge? Do we have a start date for that?
Still in permitting.
Okay.
The timeline on that is that I'm trying to have all the permits submitted in January. So that includes the individual wetlands permit, early submission of the Army Corps permit and the Act 250 permit. And what we have done is we've completed pre-application review, which basically means we've been in communication with everyone. And there is a general understanding that what we're proposing is not controversial to the extent that the facts that are known and have been communicated with the parties. Of course, you never know what could come up when people dig into it and different people get involved. Particularly Act 250, that could open up more people than I've been in communication with, but I believe I've communicated with everyone who's going to be a primary player in the review. And so with that previous communication, the hope is we'll submit this and everything should move through within no more than 2 months, which will set us up adequately for being prepared for the growing season. The regulations permit you to start working in streams, which is the end of the high flow season. I believe that cutoff is end of May or early June.
So, thanks for that. Quick one. Then the next topic on the agenda is the ERF funding and the warning of town meeting. Now, I'm actually gonna ask for a bit of a process question here. So we have a link to the draft town meeting warning in the agenda. And it is not clear to me whether or not that has actually been voted on or if it has been officially warned yet.
Last night they voted to warn it.
Okay. So 2 weeks ago at our meeting, we had a good discussion about our previous article that passed, Article 6. And I would say that I raised some substantive questions. The main go-to on my end was to reach out to Eric and Ted to seek a meeting for further conversation. I did not get that meeting. I requested the meeting that afternoon, and Eric basically said no, which was surprising. The request was to meet with the town attorney so that we could better understand the conditions of what our previous Article 6 sort of lived in, and whether or not it had sort of legal standing as its own article or if it lived within the budget. So in due course, Eric very, very respectfully said that the town attorney serves for the select board and that they don't, basically as a matter of course, set up other members of town planning commissions to meet with the town attorney. So I thought that was kind of a strange answer. I shared that with Kim and Reed, and we made the decision later in the week to just basically approach an attorney that I know who does pro bono work to answer the questions that the town attorney was willing to go to us for. So I did approach my attorney and requested on behalf of the commission if he would be willing to do some pro bono work to just basically do research and background on this question that we have. Essentially spending more of that time of like what was the legal basis for South Burlington's article, which it's really has always sort of been like well, how are they doing it kind of question. And so what he found was that the statutory interpretation that is most likely the case with our Article 6 is that it is a part of the town budget, and that there are requirements in law that budgets be re-warned to the residents. And even though Article 6 did stand alone on the ballot as its own separate item because it appears on the tax rolls, a conservative interpretation of the law could very well be that this is the town budget because it's collecting revenues. So that seems to be a reasonable interpretation for how we could understand why Article 6 is not sort of a permanent reauthorization, is because essentially the town is treating it like the budget. The follow-up question of, okay, well, how does South Burlington do it? They do it. Seemingly every year. So he was able to find some previous references from 2018, like press releases from the town that referred to the ballot initiative as a ballot that was explicit for a collection of 10 years. So the South Burlington voters voted in favor of pennies for paths with the understanding that it would be a 10-year tax, which is, very consistent actually with what Reed and I represented to the select board at our meeting in early January, which is to say, we think going to the voters every year with this article is not advisable. I think it's only a matter of time before voters either get confused or just say like, why are we voting on this every year? And then we start voting no on it. What if we had an extended period of time? So I did, after we got this information from I guess our let's just say a private attorney, I made a request to meet with Ted, the chair of the select board, to talk about changing some of this language that is currently on the screen here, Article 8, which is the new warning, to include a specific 4-year timeframe. I submitted that email to him about a week ago. I checked my sent messages. It was last week, Wednesday. I sent him another email Monday or Tuesday this week saying like the WCC is meeting this morning. I'd love to get some feedback. And I never heard back. So I'm a little disappointed, quite honestly, that I never heard back. So I don't need to get into that, but the information that we have is that, I at least now understand why there is a conservative interpretation that Article 6 doesn't sort of remain vested with the voters. The solution was to put a specific time frame around it. Kim and Reed and I sort of over email discussed this and said, well, let's make a recommendation to the select board that it be for a period of 4 years. There was enough sort of agreement between Reed and Kim and I that I didn't feel like we needed to wait for further discussion here. So let's just go to the select board. And then ultimately did not hear from the select board on that recommendation. And that is really that is as far as I got. And I guess I would actually ask Reed, if you were there last night and they discussed it,
I skipped through some of last night's meetings. Didn't have time for the whole thing. I think it was discussed last week. They had a working session last week, and I think they worked on Article 8 last week. Or, any discussion about it was last week. This week was some other items and the actual approvals of things.
Yeah. Okay. So Article 8 is here. Shall a tax of 1/2 of 1 cent continue to be assessed on the grand list with the proceeds? Same language as last one.
Yep.
10,000. So I guess if this is approved now, this is going to go to the voters.
Thank you for the work that you did on that. It's good to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it seems like the select board wants to keep this article, the way it is every year. Though, I mean, I guess for next year, we could ask them for the 4 years.
Yeah, that was my fallback plan recommendation to David and Kim was, if we can't make progress this year, I would not wait for budget season next year. I would just start in May. And start having meetings about it, because
Mhm.
the time seems to be
Yeah.
a pressure point that causes. Things to be difficult to work on. And so working on it out of budget season would be a good idea. This one does use the word continue, so hopefully that will. Be helpful, that it says, shall tax of
Mhm.
1/2 of 1 cent continue to be assessed, so hopefully. That will help us out a bit
Yeah,
for people to
that's
understand what's going on, but. That was a continuation of the existing tax that's been collected this fiscal year.
My only thought on that particular language was just that the language here assumes prior knowledge to some extent. So, you know, a new voter, new resident of Williston might not understand at first glance what continue means.
Mhm.
So with that in mind, there's trade-offs. No language is perfect, but yeah, that something to keep in mind for the inevitable education campaign over the next 2 months.
Mhm.
Um,
Hello.
welcome.
Hi.
Well, then,
Welcome.
we're prepared to consolidate, because we're gonna have probably a couple more people. trying to. So,
We've got another, well, depending on when folks come in, we might be able to get started sooner. But we've got enough 30 minutes on the agenda before.
Yeah.
So thanks for being right now.
Mhm.
David, so I think we have to, even though we may have some misgivings about how this process went, I think we have to focus on. How we get the article passed. As we discussed last year, we can't go out and tell people to vote for it. That's a town body, but we can let everybody know why it's important, why we recommend it. Why we recommended to the select board that it should be available for the voters. Why this is the right amount of money for the plans that we have as a commission. And all the education work, and we do have the web page from Article 6 still up there, which can be repurposed and modified, but I'm interested in ideas from everyone on how we get the word out to the right people without as much effort as we did last year, creating all the content from scratch.
Can you review what you did last year?
Yeah, do you want to pull up the webpage?
Sure.
That was our
Why don't
primary,
we start with the website?
yeah, that was the primary thing we did, was create that.
Gonna have to
While
update
he
that.
does that, I can say that, one thing we did do is we did a rotation. If I'm remembering correctly, we did a rotation on Front Porch Forum, so like. Twice a week, we put something into Front Porch Forum about the article, and it was different. So rather than just posting the same information, each of us. Posted about one like perspective or lens, around why. This funding of ERF is recommended by the Conservation Commission, like one about. I think Eric posted one about the importance of protecting headwaters and aquatic things. I can't remember exactly, but each of us kind of
Yeah.
picked the top and said like, this is how it applies to. This thing that's valuable to the town.
Yep.
Recreation
Yeah,
was-
I think if I remember right, we actually in one of our meetings we put together like a schedule, and in that
Mhm.
schedule we assigned, or people volunteered to take a day and write, and we also talked about what the topics of their posts would be as well. So we had it pretty well mapped out.
And we basically took information from the website. And from the memo to the select board, and just repurposed it, and trimmed it down to a particular perspective. For each post, so we didn't have to write a whole lot of new content.
So this is still the first item on the natural resources list on our town website. So all that information that you worked on last year is still there. We do have an updated version of this chart, which I can swap in. Most of these facts, I would guess, are still.
Yeah, that was part of the town
consistent.
plan surveying process.
We're gonna have to add a new section. Why are we voting on this again? Should probably be like
Probably the first thing.
yeah, I mean, I would sort of reword all of this, to be about Article 8 now. And then, history, Williston voters approved Article 6 last year. You know, why are we voting on this again? Well, we don't actually have a clear answer other than, the select board has determined that the voters should, you know, approve this ballot again annually. I don't know if I want to say annually because our preference is
Yeah.
as early as next year, you know, ask for a time limited collection. So yeah, so I think,
Do you wanna work on that opening paragraph, or do you want?
yeah, I
Want a
mean,
break from the top?
no, that's I think that the website just sort of minimal updating. And with your dropping in the new graph and then a little bit more of like a sort of wordsmithing and altering of this intro, like I think we can do that pretty quickly, especially when's it actually getting worn? Do we know that? Doesn't go out until like at the beginning of February.
Yeah, definitely by the end of the month, I think.
I think we are in the window, if I recall. I think it maybe even opens tomorrow.
Okay.
Like fairly
So we can do that.
22nd through February 4th is the,
Okay.
it's a 30 to 40 days before the March. Is it 3rd this year?
Yeah,
3rd.
March 3rd.
So, yeah, I wanna say that it's January 22nd to February 4th, and the select board wants to do it on the early side, so. I
Okay.
think this is gonna go out soon.
So then let's update the website by next week. I can put myself on that task. That should be pretty easy. The second question then is, we had Front Porch Forum. We also did a pretty extensive letter to the editor campaign with the Williston Observer. I don't think we actually, did we do a full bore article on it? No, we didn't. We got the article on the
Well, we got a free article because Jason Starr came to one of our meetings and wrote about it. So we got kind of, said like, there was like a piece about the fact that it was gonna be a separate thing even before we did our stuff last year.
So we got two articles last year,
We got,
Jacob Krantz and the ERF, because I thought we only did the letters to the editor on it.
I'll see if I can find what was written last year.
It might have been referenced in one of the,
It might have been a larger budget article,
Yeah.
and there was like a paragraph about
yeah.
conservation.
That's what I'm more.
Getting separated out.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know, what did people think? Let's have a discussion about, you know, what is the sort of level of effort versus the reward on Front Porch Forum town. I mean, my personal opinion, and then I'll stop talking, is that I think more people read the Williston Observer than they do scroll through the 24 Front Porch Forum
Agree.
headlines every
I
day.
don't read it.
I don't read it. Yeah, I read
think-
research.
On Front Porch Forum, I feel like you do get a certain demographic or audience that maybe you don't get in the Observer. And I also remember from the conversations last year, it might have been Eric Wells or somebody else who was giving us guidance on when to submit a post to Front Porch Forum to, like, there's a trick and a timing to essentially get your post like above the fold, so you're in the first like 3 posts or something and not at the bottom of the list of 20 posts each day. There's a strategy, but I feel like it's, you know, I'm pretty sure that I did one of the Front Porch Forum posts, and it was in the grand scheme of things a relatively light lift, and obviously it's hard to know how that was received, but I would suggest support doing a couple of Front Porch Forum posts in addition to an Observer letter to the editor.
Thanks, Eric.
We did get a full article, February 6th of this year. Land conservation is on the ballot was the title. Voters faced with separate conservation tax question, and then a write-up with quotes from our meeting. Not a long article, but a dedicated article
Okay.
with a photo too.
I'm wondering if we teed that up for him.
No, he came to one of our meetings. We didn't even know he was gonna do it.
I really remember talking to him at some point.
I could be wrong. That's my memory.
Okay. I'd have to go back to my notes if I Good
No,
notes
you're
on-
you're right, Dave. I remember that too. I remember you were quoted in the article a couple of times. Um, I'm pretty sure that was about
Okay.
the ERF.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, I think that is right, because the story they wrote about Jacob Krantz was just we were having the walk.
Right.
But then I think that's right. Yeah. And then I talked to Jason about the ERF. Okay. It was a long time ago. Okay. So any other discussion about what we did last year and reflections on that and what worked and didn't work? And then we can maybe pivot to we should do now.
It's easy to put something on front porch one, it's a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm happy to sign up to do a post between now and the end of February.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
and if we do it at the right time, that's what catches my eye, the first thing.
Yeah, I
If
think,
it's interesting, I look at it.
Eric, was it that, does it ring a bell? I wanna say Kim was the one who had the idea. She said like, you wait till an issue comes out in email and then you immediately.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
Yes.
was thinking, Reed. I don't remember if it was Kim or not, but I do remember, and Kim incidentally is not gonna, she sent us a text. She's not gonna be able to make it today, unfortunately. But that is what I was remembering is you submit your post like at the end of the day as opposed to the morning or something, and then it's at, like the top of the fold in the next day's issue. I'm sure that we can revisit that, but I think that we could figure that out. Maybe do a test post.
I can volunteer to look up what our schedule was last year for sending them out and what topics people were writing on. And recirculate that to folks so that we can line up who wants to post and when.
So our next meeting is February 4th and then February 18th. So I think that doing a huge blitz is probably not desirable because we don't want it. We don't want it every day or however frequently, but I think the cadence was about once a week. And then in the lead up to the actual vote, we may have had a more
Two in
frequent.
a week or something.
Yeah, a slightly more frequent pace. So like, if we just recreate that for the month of February, and then if people do want to sort of take the assignment, I think we did a full press, right, last time. So if we dial that back a little bit, given that, people did already vote on it, and presumably they'll continue to vote for it. A lighter schedule than what we did last time, right? A cadence of no more than once a week and then maybe two in the lead up. And then I think I could certainly volunteer to go back out to Jason. For some reason, I don't seem to have access to the historical.
Yeah,
Could you just,
I'll
just send me
you
the link?
Yeah, to the article.
And then I can reach back out to Jason and tell him what Article 8 is. I would not get into any of that legal interpretations
No,
that we had, although I'd have to think a little bit more clearly, probably in the afternoon, about how I would explain it and why I would explain it. But I think I think I'd be happy to do that this time around. I have a question for the commission that has been rolling around for me. Is to make this feel a little bit more fresh and to make this feel a little bit more like, what have you done for me lately? Do we want to put names of parcels out there like we're trying to get access to Brownell Mountain? We're trying to get a public easement so that we can go into the North Williston Winooski River lot. Do we want to sort of be more specific to say, if this votes for approval, we will be working heavily to sort of make progress on some of these issues?
yeah, I think we have a paragraph or a FAQ section on that in here, like what type of projects would it go toward? Might be our approach, if we could update these, this was just the best thoughts we could come up with a year ago, before we had a lot of conversations about active strategy and what we want to update about the passive strategy there. I think maybe since David M, we're working on the active strategy, maybe you and I could come up with a revision to these bullet points pretty easily based on what we talked about and then what we reviewed together. I can't remember if it was last time or the time before that.
Yeah, go ahead, Lon.
Sorry, Eric, sorry, I just wanted to also mention that committees are being formed for the statewide Vermont Conservation Plan. And I sent out an email to Vermont Master Naturalists because there were grants available until, I think, 3 days from now, maybe. To get interested folks together to discuss like in one big meeting. But anyway, we could tie that in maybe with what we're doing, that bigger picture.
Hmm.
Just not asking for a grant, but just tying in what's going on right now at the state level.
Okay.
That would be something that would be a good either front porch form or letter to the editor coming directly from you.
Yeah.
And your connection to the organization.
Yeah,
For
good
sure.
idea. Okay.
Yeah, how does this fit into the state's
Yeah.
planning?
Eric, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just going back to providing examples of parcels that we might want to consider or are considering for conservation through the ERF. I would just be careful and not don't be too specific unless we've actually talked to the landowner. Because think about, if I read about in the Observer about how the town wants to buy my land without the town actually talking to me first, that could really turn me off.
Yeah, no, thanks for that comment, Eric. And to be specific, I was not gonna say we're talking to a referenced specific landowner, in relation to the Jacob Krantz parcel, right? We've had executive meetings where the name of that landowner has been discussed. So I would not name that landowner. I would just maybe reference that there are two, high priority parcels that are currently landlocked that we are very likely gonna have to pursue, easements for.
Yeah.
And, one of them is in North Williston along the Winooski River, the second is Brownell Mountain. And, years of sort of puttering away at it haven't really been successful, but the ERF could be used more assertively to
Yep.
find a solution.
Okay, great. Sounds good.
I
Thank
just
you
want
for
to
clarifying that.
reference, I just want to reference those two parcels because I think
Mhm.
that's something that people can actually
Connect to, yep.
connect to, right?
Yep.
But I hear you. We need to be careful about that.
And then incidentally, I did find the article that was in the Observer last year about this. It was published on February 6th. It was the one written by Jason Starr. It's got quotes from you, Dave, and from Reed in there, and Terry McCaig too. It was a good article. I think I'm wondering if we had planned to publish our own letter to the editor, or maybe we did publish a letter to the editor in addition to this article.
Yeah.
This article really helped us out too.
Yeah, we did. Okay, so any further discussion on this? Okay, sounds like we will agree to do a slightly scaled down, but nonetheless consistent public outreach campaign. We'll update the website. I'll re-engage with Jason Starr at the Observer. And we will
Get it passed.
get it passed. It will be very interesting to see what the final vote tally looks like.
It is different this year with the $13 million plus library bond on there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do worry about that.
Yeah,
There's a lot
100
of-
grand seems pretty nominal compared to 13 million.
Yeah.
Correct. Hey, any further discussion on this or should we move on? Okay, hearing none, then onward. The next topic is a Pre-app, no, hold on, is it pre-app?
Yeah.
I'm just going back to my agenda. For some reason, Dave, I don't know why. But instead of opening. When we have something linked in our agenda, instead of opening in a new tab,
It opens at the same time.
it opens in the same tab. So I always
That's-
lose
yeah.
track of our agenda in real time. So I try to open as many tabs as I can, but then I can never find what I'm on. Okay. So we have a agenda item, DP 2408.1, Jim and Lucy McCullough LLC for pre-app review. And we're a little bit early. I hope that's not gonna be. We're never early.
Yeah, whenever, no, it's okay. Well, we can do some introductions. I feel
Back
like you
on.
guys,
Oh,
came nice and early. Yeah, sorry for postponing.
oh, not at
introductions.
all. Yeah, my name is Lucy Thayer. I'm a landscape architect and project manager, for the project, representing the applicant.
I'm Cole LaFleche. I'm a civil engineer, also representing the applicant.
All right, great, thank
And
you.
you're both with Bowman?
Yes,
Okay, great.
forgot to say that.
Yeah.
And I'm Laura Meyer, part of the Conservation Commission.
Chair, Dave Weston.
Liz Blevins.
Reed Carr.
David Maroney, I'm the senior conservation planner for Williston.
Very good.
We have Eric Howe, remote.
Hi all, Eric Howe. Thanks for coming in today. Better
Of
than me.
course.
We also
So-
have muffins if you want.
Oh,
yeah.
Chocolate chip.
They do have almond. Just. It's anybody,
Sounds pretty
but they're
good.
pumpkin chocolate.
No, say no.
We are
Thank you
expecting,
very much.
Lucy, I do see
But I'm
some
not
lights
sure.
outside. My recommendation would be, we do have 12 minutes here. So there are a couple of things kind of squeezed onto the other business. So my recommendation would be that we might just grab those minutes to talk about a few of them real quick.
Sure, if we wanna wait, we'll hold, until 8 o'clock then for Jim and Lucy to join us. So that's not this Lucy.
No, I'm Lucy Thayer
Okay.
and Lucy McCullough and Jim are,
Yeah.
yeah, the client, yeah. So you don't often have so many Lucys in one room.
Fair enough, okay, yeah, so we were hoping to get a Catamount Community Forest update from Kim, in one
Oh,
of
right,
our
that won't be.
other businesses, so that can't happen.
Right, Tim is out today and Kim texted us during the meeting that she had a scheduling snafu, so we'll be able to.
Yeah.
But I can point out two quick things. One is the final version of the one page. Kim did a very nice editing job and edited everything down one page, a quick gloss over, and we've put it into the required format, so that's posted.
Hey,
Yeah.
Dave, is
Yes.
it too late to spell Gary's last name? Fix the spelling under Gary's last name under the respectfully submitted by part?
No, it would not be too late. I'm sure I can manage that. Oh, yes, typo. Thank
Was there,
you so much.
was there an extra E in there?
He's trying to be like,
No,
Eric.
the E and the L were swapped.
he's trying to be like Eric Howe, Gary Howell Lee.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Eric.
Kim did a great job.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a nice note.
Really, really good. I especially appreciate the way she took an entire page of information from me and made it into 2 lines.
Yeah.
That was good.
Okay, it's spelled correctly
Sharp scissors.
the first 2 times, incorrectly the last time. So this list was assembled, so Tim wasn't on this list because he joined in FY 26. This is separate, and Lynn joined just a few weeks before the end of FY
You made the
25.
cut.
Great. Anything else that anyone caught? Thank you, Eric, that's really. Appreciate it.
Yeah, let's talk about the turf letters. And we can always, if Jim and Lucy do come in, we can always continue the turf letter.
Sure. Okay, so, let's see if I have that pulled up yet. I'll just bring it up. So we received a letter from community member Cheryl Dorschner. I'll share my screen. And this connects directly to, a previous conversation. comments, there we go. Raised by Lynn earlier about concern about the impact of artificial turf proposal at Champlain Valley High School. So hopefully you got a chance to read this letter. I won't go through it in detail, but this was addressed to me with sort of attention to the Conservation Commission. And yeah, anything?
So the letter is seeking input from the Conservation Commission. They got a vote from Heinsberg. Essentially objecting to the turf. So that's kind of that's the request to us. So I guess I'll just open it up for discussion. Looks like our guests are here. So why don't we allow our guests to come in and then we'll continue this.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
You know squeeze in, we have one more comfy chair over there. Just one across, yeah.
I was wondering if the muffin tradition is carried in.
By Lynn. I've been thanking Lynn.
Somebody, you know, on this suspicious day of bribing and all that.
Yeah, where are your muffins?
But
Morning,
wait,
Lucy.
Jim and Lucy, they do have their pumpkin chocolate chip, they do have almond flour. And
We just ate.
okay,
We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
take one with you.
Okay,
Alright.
so we will pivot back to 24-08. And Dave, do you want to give us the intro here?
Sure. All right, first of all, welcome to Jim and Lucy. Maybe we'll go around real quick and do names one more time. I'll start. I'm Dave Maroney, Conservation Planner for Town of Williston.
Reed Carr, Commissioner.
Lynn Blevins, also Commissioner.
Dave Westman, Chair.
Laura Meyer, Commissioner.
Jim McCullough.
McCullough.
Orla Flesh, Rick Bowman.
Lucy Thayer.
Great. Okay,
Eric,
so
I was on
Oh,
Laura.
yes, Eric.
Can you put Jim and Lucy's thing?
Hi, Jim. Hi, Lucy.
Oh.
You will all please excuse my, what? Both hearing aids are in the shop.
Okay.
So he's he will be talking loudly. Announcement too. He's
Great.
good.
All right, so I'll provide introduction via way of walking you through the highlights of the staff report document that I put together. This takes information from the submission materials from the applicant and combines it with perspective on our initial compliance review of the bylaw chapters that pertain to the Williston Conservation Commission review. The Conservation Commission is advisory body to the DRB. So the Conservation Commission submits recommendations for the DRB to consider during the pre-app and discretionary permit review pertaining to certain elements of natural resource review that are written out in the bylaw. Okay, so the property we're looking at is 88 Mountain View Road. Applicants, Jim and Lucy McCullough. Right here on that intersection with Mountain View Road and 2A. And this is a pre-application review for proposed residential development with 32 dwellings. That's in single family structures, 4 duplex and 5 triplex structures. Also including community center, parking and gravel wetlands on about a 10-acre parcel. And this is a new plan or new design for a project that the Conservation Commission saw a previous iteration of in December of 2023. The proposal is to subdivide the existing parcel into 2 lots. One essentially contains the existing home site right here on the upper left, the existing house. And the other, about 8.5 acres, contains the new development. Parcel is bounded by Mountain View Road on the top, which is where access will be for Loop Road, with plans to connect to the adjoining parcel where the permitted Sally's Way development is. And let's see, south or west is 2A and a couple of single family residences, and south is in Meadow Run West HOA. Let's see, the other introductory note is the project design and layout is based on Maharishi Vastu architecture principles that dictate several elements of the site layout and building design, including architectural features and building orientation and access orientation. All right, so we'll really just zoom in on really two main areas, which is the seeding view sheds and streams, wetlands, lakes, and ponds. In terms of compliance with the conservation elements of the bylaw, most is very straightforward. You know, this is a low priority conservation parcel according to the 2020 Environmental Reserve Fund prioritization. There are no mapped desired primitive trails, no significant wildlife habitat area, unique natural communities. Yeah.
Can I just pause on that topic? The multi-use path.
Yes.
I didn't see that reflected on the drawings.
I don't think that was reflected. So, right, there is a proposed multi-use path, or the official map for Williston shows proposed multi-use paths across frontage of Mountain View Road. So most projects that develop on Mountain View Road will see that during conversation about that during development review. I don't think that pertains directly to the Conservation Commission review here today, because that is a multi-use path. So that will definitely come up in the conversation with the development review. But since there's no primitive trail, my understanding is that it doesn't need to be discussed today.
The reason I wanted to raise it was because, one, I just want to be sure that it does get caught, because I didn't see it in the linked project for Sally's Way. And that seemed like it was a project that's been further along, and I didn't see it reflected in that schematic either. So I wanted to just flag that for your awareness. And then also, if you do insert that path, how does that sort of change the layout and or the overall orientation of the whole project? And that could have impacts on you know, how not only the site layout, but just like where things land.
Sure.
As far as those class 2 and class 3 wetlands. So
yeah, we can definitely give the applicant a chance to comment on that. I will say, I believe that there has been negotiation for a multi-use path easement with the Sally's Way development. I'll have to confirm that. But I believe that that is either ongoing or has occurred.
Okay.
Hey, do you want to comment at all on?
Yeah, I believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim and Lucy, but we, in our original, the previous application iteration, we did show an easement for this path. So it is something that's on our radar, and we do intend to include, because I believe it is required. So we have shown an easement. I think that the town requires it's a 10-foot easement, but I recall that we did include that on the previous iteration, so.
Yeah, don't quote me. I think it's 10 feet, but also because it has to be able to be plowed by a pickup truck with a plow on it. But then there's also grading requirements off of it to make sure that the water drains the right places and stuff. So, but it's outside of my.
No, so I don't anticipate, so to your point, I don't anticipate any changes to the layout that would result from that path, because that is something that we have, that's been on our radar before, or would change the grading, so that's something we could certainly accommodate.
What's that setback between Mountain View Road and the closest structure?
Between Mountain View Road and the closest structure?
Yeah.
I think it's,
60.
yeah, I think it's
the narrative
60 as well.
said.
Okay. Yeah. I thought it was pretty decent distance off the road.
Yeah, the required is 50, if I remember correctly. And I think the narrative said 60 for this pool.
Yeah,
So theoretically, there's room there for a 10-foot plus or minus easement.
great, thanks.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, anyone feel free to jump in at any point and ask questions. All right. So I was just mentioning that there's no, most of the habitat features that might raise a question are not present at this site. There's no uncommon, rare, threatened, or endangered species mapped, no farmland of local importance. So the two areas that I mentioned for that may pertain to a discussion today is that, first of all, the scenic view shed. So the subject parcel is within an area mapped as primary foreground on the visual assessment official map. And there's a public vantage point from Mountain View Road shown on that map, southeast towards the Green Mountains. This was also a topic of discussion during the discussion of the previous iteration. This is a quick Google Maps Street View capture of what that site looks like. And there, I believe there are some additional pictures of that vantage point that you can look at that were submitted with us, the adjoining parcel Sally's Way. So if you click through those links that I provide in the report, there's a rendering of what buildings on that site would look with the view shed. But here you can see that it's, at least from this perspective, you have rising above the top of the tree line. It's your first time that the Green Mountains pop up, I believe, on Mountain View Road. So that's most likely the view shed that is referenced there by the primary view shed. Camel's Hump kind of peaks over. All right, applicant stated in the narrative that the project has minimized impacts. They've already attempted to take this into consideration by not proposing structures or minimizing structures along the Mountain View Road frontage. So there's one 2-story duplex and within that setback of approximately 60 feet. And new structures will follow the existing site topography to the greatest extent possible. So that's a note from the applicant. And in terms of what the bylaw says, so we're in the RZD, the residential zoning district, and the requirements to minimize impacts on scenic view sheds here are not quite as strict as they are in the ARZD, but we know that this is an area that there's no complete objective, right and wrong about how to mitigate impacts on scenic view sheds usually. It often comes down to planning and discussion, and that's really how it works in the RZD. In general, the requirement is to minimize that impact, but development projects may still be required to take some mitigating measures, but it can often be built into the planning. Common mitigation measures that can be prescribed. Oftentimes, the first option is to include some open space that protects the scenic view shed. Other potential mitigating measures would be to ensure that buildings are absorbed into the tree line or the background, or stipulating low contrast colors. So of note, during the first iteration review, this commission recommended the applicant work with staff to minimize visibility of the development and avoid buildings being outlined against the sky wherever possible. So that really kind of opens up the conversation here for Conservation Commission to ask any questions, discuss with the applicant here about if you believe there are any potential view shed impacts related to this iteration of the design.
Dave, would you actually mind just following through some of those links to the Sally's Way? Because I think the street view is only one
Yes, let me go
point of
ahead.
reference.
Yeah, street view is just one point of reference.
Just below the street view is the
Right.
yeah.
And I'm guessing by that pause that you were suggesting we have our conversation
Yes.
about
Yeah.
yeah, great.
One can see in that view a portion of Camel's Hump about so big, just peeking over the pine trees that have grown significantly since the view shed was identified.
Yes.
You've also got
That's true.
You've also got the first clear shot of Mansfield on the left side of the road too. So it's pretty that is pretty unique. And I drive this a lot too, and it is pretty unique because it's if you blink, you miss it, but it is there. for the taking if if you got it.
Yeah, I think I took that photo. These ones with the numbers here are mine.
So this of note, this view shed number 5 is actually from across the street.
In a little bit on the cross.
Yeah, if you look at this locator map,
Yeah, there you go. 4 and
4 and 5, so it's gained a little bit of elevation, so if you're on Mountain View Road, you wouldn't see quite as much. Here, you're seeing a little more of Camel Sump, because you're a little bit higher.
So can we maybe hear why the 60-foot buffer will is designed to not impact this view? And have you mapped that out or projected that will not be obstructing the tiny view of the Camel Sump?
Yeah, so the 60 foot is actually, that's just the first building, the duplex. If you look at the site, so that's the number 1 and 2. And then, you know, once you get to 32, 31, 30, 29, those are more than double the distance. So those are 130 or more feet back, or even more than that. They're significantly farther. I don't have a scale rule here, but so the intent was that, and if you look at the primary foreground mapping, it suggests that those views occur on the eastern portion of the property. Right, if I'm looking
Right,
at
the
that,
vantage point towards the southeast.
right, so the goal here was to have our you know, to be set back, and this is certainly an improvement from our first iteration where we had more buildings up along Mountain View Road. So we really kind of took that into consideration when doing this plan to have to locate the duplex and other buildings farther towards the west and allow that view to open up as we got into that primary foreground scenic view shed. So that was the intent, and the other kind of important point that's hard to see on this plan is the difference in topography and how the road is in fact higher and the buildings are lower. So the goal here is to have the buildings, as you're driving easterly, you are going to be at a higher elevation on the road, and the buildings will hopefully be they'll be at a lower elevation. They're, you know, finished floor. So that was our you know, way to have development in the residential district and also maintain this scenic view shed corridor.
That makes sense. I'll note also that the wetland feature here ensures that southeast vantage point would continue. You know, there wouldn't be a house in there because this unit number 24 is set back even further. It's also worth noting that there's an adjacent development permitted east of the project, so there will be buildings, and the way our standard in the residential zoning district is written is that you should expect to see buildings in the residential zoning district. But that to the degree that is possible, it's still a requirement to protect the view sheds.
Go ahead, Reed.
Yeah, having taken those pictures to help a couple of years ago with both of these permit reviews. It's only units 1 and 2 that I without a rendering, I have a hard time figuring out where those are gonna sit within the skyline. Everything else to me, for the rest of the commissioners, having gone out and taken those photos, the rest of it looks good to me. That the area that is directly north of unit 31 and 32, where there's that horizontal drive. That was the area that was a little bit more concerning on the previous iteration. Yeah, just north of those, yeah, exactly, yeah, that road there. That area had some structures, I think, in it in the first iteration, and that was a bit more in the view shed. The units 1 and 2 off to the left, really, my gut tells me that they're not gonna be in the view shed, but I do think rendering would be helpful for the discretionary phase, just to confirm where they're gonna fall along that.
Yeah, there's a very specific spot that the view is sort of clear, and it's right in front of the point of reference here is the school zone sign that is visible on street view. And then much past that, it does get obscured by that row of trees, and it's sort of
the road goes down, and so you see less and less.
Right.
It's kind of fleeting.
So the rendering the location of where that rendering is taken from is like really important for answering Rig's question, right? It's like if you do the rendering too far back, you miss it. If you go too far forward, you miss it. It's really kind of got to be right in front of that school zone sign. And there it's really clear, like, okay, there's Camelstown, there's Mansfield. The first unit's going to be off and to the right. I generally, if I'm looking at this right and this row, this field, this basically where it's currently not mowed. In this image that I'm looking at, my gut tells me it's gonna be fine too, but we sort of need that image rendered.
If we're concerned about it, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, so here's that big tree. I can actually see it on the map.
yeah, this is the big
The
tree
sketch
there.
plan that you just had. So right in front of that tree is where
The sign is.
the sign is, and that's right where you can see the view. And much before that,
So right here.
yeah. Actually, no, back a
Go
little,
back a
back,
little bit.
right there. Right there. That's where the view is.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that also resonates as a resident in a neighboring community. That's where you can see it. And not much before and not much after. So you got a tiny little window there.
So the other component of this conversation that pertains to the review today is that is the question of street trees.
Mhm.
So with Conservation Commission recommendation, the DRB can waive the requirement to have street trees along Mountain View Road. That was not done for Sally's Way development, so of note, but as you're discussing about this, the particular view that becomes apparent as you're moving east of Mountain View Road, right around here, that's an option for you to convey a recommendation. For this project, I think that question was not decided during the initial or during the last iteration of the project review. So that's a discussion that you certainly can have.
I think it would be relatively straightforward to have it rendered with both street trees and
With
without.
both trees and.
I mean, we're really just focusing on this one aspect. And I think, whether or not that's a low line, low elevation shrubbery or hedgerow or whatever, you could still sort of get the effect without blocking or obscuring the view. I mean, you don't need to, you can't plant tall trees there anyways, because you're in a utility right of way. So you wouldn't be able to put big tall growing trees there anyways.
Eric has his hand up.
Oh, Eric, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with what you all are saying regarding the street trees. Normally, I'm a strong advocate for planting trees, but in this particular situation, given that we're trying to protect the viewscape or view shed rather, I would support a waiver if that's what's required to that to planting street trees. I'm looking at it right now on Google Maps or Earth or whatever at the street view level, and I can see what you're saying. You're referencing with the school zone sign and Camel's Hump way off in the distance behind it. But what I see first and foremost in the foreground are the power lines. And
Mhm.
I didn't realize that's out of the scope of this particular project, but that would be awesome for the town to work with. I don't know if that's Green Mountain Power or Velco or who, but to get those power lines buried, perhaps in conjunction with this project and remove those from the view shed.
They're not as visible, quite honestly, from a car. The Google Street View is
A little bit
yeah,
higher.
it's pretty elevated. I agree though, in the street view map, the utility lines are very prominent. Yeah. But yeah, thanks, Eric.
Well, that would certainly be an independent discussion.
Yeah, I'm also not even suggesting that we make the decision of a waiver for street trees. My suggestion was that
Render both.
render both. Let's take a look at both and how we can sort of make it work.
Okay. Any other comments regarding scenic view sheds?
Reed, did you have?
Laura, did you have
oh, no.
Okay. I was gonna have one more comment about the street tree thing, which is, I think as you move forward, I would think about if there is going to be a multi-use path there, how that might play into it. For instance, this isn't a conservation commission conversation, but it's a DRB conversation. For instance, the comfort of using a multi-use path next to a road with a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. It might be nice to have like low shrubs in between the road and the multi-use path that don't block the view shed, but do block lights from the road. People often use their high beams on that road because there's not street lights and it's a high speed limit. So, just thinking about like the comfort of people being adjacent to the road, might lean one way or the other on what to plant, if anything.
Yeah, and I know this isn't a conservation commission issue itself, but roots of trees, when they grow under bike paths, really disrupt the bike paths too. So not having trees in my mind, even though they do give you some shade, have to be carefully done.
My gut says something more like hedgerow bushes or something that are in between a multi-use path and the road is what might be the optimal outcome in the end, but that's not for us to decide with you, but input as you get ready to talk to the DRB.
I think we can move on, but I think the general current is that, you know, the rendering will be very helpful for furthering this discussion. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and I think that's consistent with the recommendation that was made during the last iteration review as well. So we'll take a look at recommended or possible recommendations at the end. Yeah. All right, so the other area where that pertains to conversation today is watershed health. This is fairly boilerplate, but just any proposal that disturbs more than 2 acres does not qualify as low risk, so requires an erosion prevention and sediment control plan submitted with discretionary permit filing. That's all that needs to be said there. And the next question is wetlands. And I thought this would just be a good time for the applicant or applicant's representatives just to clarify or explain a difference from the first submission to this submission in the wetland classifications and kind of what was behind that, so the commission can be aware.
Yeah, so the initial wetland was delineated as a class 2, however, the adjacent Salliway property delineated the same wetland as a class 3. And the state wetlands department decided to change it to a class 3 determination to have consistency there.
And that's with reference to wetland C.
Yeah, wetland C. The other wetland A remains a class 2.
And it's currently an open space area.
Right. Right, and these are, yeah, exactly. So this is all open field currently.
Both just wetland A.
Wetland A is a class 2,
Right.
Wetland B, C, and D are class 3.
How is the drainage gonna be impacted by, I mean, even if it's just a class 3, does that just mean you're gonna fill it to grade and then, or are you gonna use that gravel wetland as the, how's that gonna work?
Yeah, so I mean, the gravel wetland is definitely set in the lowest point I could find for
Two
it.
gravel
And there
wetlands
are 2 gravel wetlands on the site, but
on the
the
north and the south of it.
Yeah,
okay, yeah, to try to make, you know, the lower portion of the site is gonna be filled a little bit to get the houses up to be able to drain
Some road levels.
yeah.
Okay.
I love aesthetically the little funky driveway for 21 through 23. That's fun. I've never seen a driveway like that.
Yeah.
So this is not a conservation commission review, but I believe in when it goes to DRB, most likely this little spur sticks out into the buffer, which I think is not permitted, so just a note, there might be a small reconfiguration there. I think retaining wall and stormwater features can stick out into side properties, setbacks, or landscape buffers. Most likely that little nub, I don't think will be permitted.
Oh, did you do that so that they can like back up?
Back up
turn
and get
around?
out, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
Okay, so any questions from, there's not necessarily any action points here, but any questions from the Conservation Commission regarding wetlands on site? So the class 2 wetland has a full 50-foot buffer shown on this site plan. It's not obstructed in any way by the proposed development.
I guess the only thing I would point out is that in the final review, we would expect some kind of provision of here's how we're going to keep that 50-foot buffer in place in perpetuity, whether that's permanent signage or large boulders, just as some kind of visual marker so that it doesn't become a mowed field after a decade or so. Or just one dry season can be all it takes, that, someone just decides to mow it and then it's gone forever. So we do ask that that be part of your final plan.
Right.
I have a more general question. I don't know anything about this form of architecture, but it did say that like all the entrances have to be from the east. And yet I see that for the single family homes, but those multifamily homes all sort of don't seem to fit with that. Like, that was just a question since you're here.
Yeah, so, that's an astute observation. They have said from the east. However, it is from the east or the north. East being, I think, preferred, north being, very acceptable.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
South being,
Oh,
all right.
And I believe that is also represents some compromise with the town's requirements from the first iteration. The town requires
A little reshuffle.
major access from across the road. I believe in
Yes,
most cases.
We had units that did not face the road. And we were told that they must face the road with, there was a lot of work that went into making sure that happened.
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
well, so then the roads are also oriented on a north, south, east, west axis
Mhm,
to facilitate that.
mhm.
Okay,
thanks.
great. And there's just a couple of things in here that are also fairly boilerplate, so that there is a requirement in the bylaw that reiterates Dave's comment: watershed protection buffers must be clearly demarcated on the site plan and on the ground to prevent future disturbance. So that can be cedar posts, boulders, signage, various ways to do that. We've already talked about street trees, and the only other comment in terms of open space, there's no quantitative minimum requirements in the RZD. So although open space must include wetlands and different conservation areas that are identified on site. On this site that mostly consists of the scenic view shed and the class 2 wetland. Class 2 wetland is demarcated as open space de facto. And we've already had discussion about how the design of the site takes into account the scenic view shed, and rendering will help during the next round of review for the Conservation Commission to fully understand that. All right, so I'll jump down to draft recommendations. Items number 1 through 6, I copied directly from the Conservation Commission recommendations from the first iteration of this project. Most of those are straightforward recommendations that would come with any project of this size in this area. So showing all wetlands and their buffers in delineation on the map, which is already done. Proposed developments not encroaching into the buffers, buffers being demarcated, already discussed. Submitting that erosion control plan. Including open space, as we've discussed. And number 5 is from your previous discussion about scenic view sheds. So visualization rendering shall be provided discretion of permit, showing the development is viewed from Mountain View Road in the direction of Camel's Hump. And that could potentially be amended today to include your request for a rendering with both street trees and without. Number 6, boilerplate, just demonstrating compliance with the scenic view shed requirements. And then number 7, I put in here as something that can be decided today, whether you want to or don't want to stipulate any recommendation about the requirement for street trees.
Yeah, I think this could be amended to reflect the visualization should be represented with, options of for street trees. Whether that's a low-lying hedge or something more traditional as a point of reference. That being said, I don't do those visualizations. I don't know how easy that is to accomplish. But if it's straightforward, then I think more the better.
Can we just say the DRB can waive the requirement so that they know that we're whatever they think? Or
I would say, based on discussion today, I would probably just amend number 5
okay,
and then take out 7 for now.
okay, good, yeah,
I'd say at this stage, it sounds like it's not necessary to make a comment
okay,
on that.
Can I make a suggested modification that's slightly different than that?
Sure.
A tweak on it, so I'm gonna suggest we remove 7 and then 5, we simply add a sentence after what's there that says. This will inform decision-making on whether to include street trees. Or what, or not.
It's more than just the street trees.
This view, because this view is gonna cover view shed already, and then
Yeah.
add to that, it will also inform street tree.
Yeah.
Maybe the word also is helpful, will also inform street tree.
Mhm.
The decision on street trees.
Great.
And maybe one or more visualizations to reflect that as options.
Okay, great. I can add that language and amend this. All right, so any questions from the applicants, any comments or questions? Or anything else from the Conservation Commission regarding the proposal?
Comment about a perhaps hedge of some sort, but which I took to be right near the right of way for the multi-use path. And plants being who they are, love to grow. And if there's not sufficient room, will start impinging upon the multi-use path. And further, if they're planted there before the path is built, the construction will likely rip them all out. And well, then they'll be replaced, I presume, as part of the CCRP's project, which is planned for Mountain View Road. But those are just comments and thoughts, not intended to say, bad idea, or in fact, the farther we can get paths away from highway, the happier we are. So I get that as well.
Appreciate that.
Okay, well, it sounds like the commission doesn't have any other comments.
I'll move approval of the recommendations as drafted. As amended, excuse me, as amended.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Reed. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Laura. All in favor of approving as amended? Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Approved. Thank you for your time and good luck with your project. Williston certainly needs the housing.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming back.
And kudos.
I know. Yeah,
Lynn.
really did.
There'll be more, come back again.
Yeah, thank you all so much for coming this morning.
Thank you for having us. It's spring, it'll transition to banana.
Yeah.
So is Sally's Way on both planning already?
I believe Sally's Way is fully permitted, but I think there may have been an amendment to the initially permitted plan, which brought up, which may have gone to DRB recently.
Thanks, Jim.
So I can get more information.
That's,
If needed.
I don't remember ever seeing Sally's Way when I was on the commission, so I feel like that must be have been on the books for a long time.
It's a good question. I mean, it certainly predates my being here, so I'd have
Yeah.
to dig into it.
They're digging stuff up
Yeah,
over there right now, so I mean, they're clearly like, I think they are at some point of discretionary planning. They're
Yeah, they're
moving,
definitely.
they're
beyond-
moving a
yeah,
lot
they're-
of soil over there.
Yeah,
yeah, I think they're into building.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the sequencing of when we first saw the McCullough proposal
Yeah.
and
It-
subsequently
The
that.
strange thing is that it doesn't look like they're building a road as a through road right now, and that's what this plan, and you can, when I run on Meadow Run Road,
Mhm.
I actually see the curb cut.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so like it's there,
Yeah,
but it doesn't look like the project has any intent of getting there anytime soon,
interesting.
which is interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I will be through road. I know there have been. This isn't CC review, but there have been public comments of concern about the impact of that through road
Mhm.
on traffic patterns and whether that can encourage people to try to avoid the two-way Mountain View Road intersection,
So.
cut through those neighborhoods.
Yeah,
Although I don't know, turning left from Meadow Run Road onto two-way is not pleasant, so.
no, it really isn't, and that project that is now mostly done or functionally done, on Mountain View and 2A is a huge improvement. I mean, the traffic is flowing now, as traffic planners tend to do, right? Okay. Great.
Lynn, did you have something?
Yeah, I wonder if that was Sally's Way was approved a long time ago, because there's like Caroline Court and Katie, like it's almost seems like they go together, a bunch
Oh.
of women.
Girls. Sally, Caroline.
Yeah,
right.
they're all like lined up right
Mhm.
there, so I wonder if it was, has been in the works for a
I
long.
do remember we looked at the street tree proposal with that and we decided that. Because it goes downhill so much that by the time we got to that development, it was gonna be down and. Completely within the skyline, the tree line.
Okay. Let's go back to the letter.
So it's a masterpiece of hitting the agenda points today.
Trying to get through it all. 8:34, I think, this was an interesting one.
Okay, so let me just pull back up the. Wow. No, Reed Willis is here. Hi, Reed. As an attendee, Reed has joined us. Some point in the last few minutes. The last 20 minutes.
I noticed that, the Observer also followed our last meeting because we were the first meeting with the new, online, viewing platform.
Right.
Yeah, the Zoom bombing and whatnot.
Right.
Still didn't get a clear sense of what those Zoom bombers did, but I guess.
Oh,
Kim.
Yeah.
Lauren.
I'll talk to Kim
Sure,
after.
inappropriate language and content.
Well, you gotta really have time on your hands to do that for a Catamount Community Forest. All right. Okay, I thought this was an interesting letter. I am very curious to sort of hear the reactions from the commissioners on what their sort of. What did they take from this letter? And I should know we don't have the author of the letter present, so we're sort of, interpreting it as it was written. Yes.
So yeah, I didn't reach out to try to bring anyone in today because I knew it was a tight schedule. I thought that could be a step too far for what could fit into
We could
today.
also have this discussion now and invite that person.
But absolutely right.
I see Eric has his hand up. Which I'm glad
Thanks.
you're here, for, Eric, because when I read this letter, you were the first person that popped into my head. Like, I want to get Eric's point of view on this.
So yeah, so I agree with everything. Well, I guess, well, I don't know, maybe we can get to this question later, but at the end of this conversation is our goal to decide if we want to submit a letter or not, and then obviously what the content of the letter would be.
We can agree to that. We could agree that we don't agree. We could agree that we want
Okay.
more information. I mean, we can decide whatever we want to decide.
Okay. Thanks. So I guess my perspective on this is that I agree with all the points that are made in this communication. Um, having not actually done the research myself to look into the amount of PFAS that's leached from these turf fields into the receiving waters. I don't know anything about the lack of transparency of the school board, or efforts to bypass democracy by using private funds. But the PFAS thing, I could see how that would be a real concern, just from my perspective in the water quality world. What if we are going to submit something along to I don't even know who it would be to see the school board, I guess.
I guess it would be the CVSD, yeah.
I would like to see a request from the Williston Conservation Commission. Like to see a request that and we can outline the concerns that are provided in by Andrea here, but I'd like to see a request that they either provide evidence of or have a discussion to alternatives to turf fields. I just did a quick Google search, very quick Google search, and there are alternatives out there. This issue is not unique to CVU. And I think that it would be great to see it like a cost benefit analysis done by the CVS, the school district, to demonstrate that installing and maintaining and then replacing again turf is a better alternative to just simply upgrading the fields now, making improvements to drainage and managing the grass, the turf, natural turf, in a way that allows for the fields to be used more quickly after after storm events, and perhaps even extends the use of the fields earlier in the spring and later into the fall. I haven't looked into this myself enough to really know if those conversations have been had, and maybe that's what Andrea means by lack of transparency. But if if the folks who are interested in putting up the money to pay for apparently a very expensive installation of a turf field, are open to conversations around organic management, which I would think that given the individual who's leading this effort for a turf and their background, their business, might be interested in that. I'd be very curious to hear if that's even on the table as an alternative to turf management.
Yeah, I have a couple high-level questions that sort of build on what Eric is talking about too. The first thing is that I don't actually know which field is being proposed. There's so many fields behind CVU.
It's the one directly to the south of the track. So there's like
South of the track. Not the one encompassed within the track?
no, at the
Not the
end of the
football
oval
field?
of the track. So if you're looking, if you walk from the school up to the track and then you turn
Yeah.
right at the track,
Okay.
it's the field that
For
And-
point of reference, that's east, not
it's
south.
not east.
Yeah, it's
Okay, yes, east, yes, okay.
That's a long.
That one there.
That
It's
one.
between the
there.
track and the one between the track and field C, for those of
Yes.
you who
No field
are
C.
familiar with CVU.
Which, is it this one?
Nope, up.
This,
Nope, up one, that one, yeah, that one there, yeah. That's the current varsity soccer field, and that's the one that's in question.
should be
Interesting.
one of 5 fields. 6 fields. Wow,
Yes.
there's a lot of fields here.
There's a lot of
It's
fields.
actually,
Yeah.
I think, the most recently redone field there.
So I don't have athletes at home who would use that field, but my neighbor did, and I asked him about this question because I knew it was on the agenda. And he said that his boys' experience is that the athletes are constantly being delayed, like their practices, their games are sort of in a constant state of shuffle because the field is unusable for huge stretches at a time. And they will often relocate to another indoor facility in South Burlington, or Shelburne, I think he said.
Yep.
And so,
I'll second that. That's what my son has experienced over his 2 years at CVU as well.
right. I also just, Dave, if you could just toggle to map mode for a quick second.
Map mode.
Yeah, so now I know this is imprecise, but it's not always that bad. They've got a stream going directly through there. So, yeah, so
Yeah,
like,
It drains around, there is a stream back in there, yeah. There is a stream that comes down through there. I know the cross-country runners have to navigate it back in there.
okay, so those are all the cross.
And it's been rerouted around the track.
Oh, is this?
Yeah, there's a wetland
ditch?
there and a
Yeah.
ditch and it drains it around and then it reconnects back to where it used to go.
Ah, yes, very,
Oh, and then drains into this well.
very hard-handed engineering,
Yeah.
approach to this.
Interesting.
We've moved that stream, but it hasn't been remapped.
Right. The fact that they've introduced a 90-degree turn in a free-flowing river would also sort of tell me that field is to the right is probably gonna always be doomed, because you're gonna slow the water and it's always gonna pool in a place where you haven't dammed it, and it looks like they've engineered quite a heavy dam.
The
for
field
that.
is elevated, it's
Track,
about
yeah.
like a
This one?
8-foot drop off, yeah, it's like an 8-foot drop off on each side down to the
Right. Oh,
ditches.
you're a coach or
And I've played
or
on that field.
referee and whatnot, so
Yeah.
you know these fields,
Yeah, I
right?
played against the CVU boys team on that field in a friendly.
Okay.
Last year.
So I have one question for Lynn, who initially called attention to this question. Did you feel like this letter kind of captured the concerns that had prompted you initially raising this topic, or you think anything is kind of left out from what you originally thinking or feeling?
So I came to this from, I think there's a lot of things that have been raised
Yeah.
there, and not all of them are purview, like democracy, so.
Yeah.
Which, like, I agree with that, but I don't think that, like, we should stick to our lane. And so my primary concern when I read about this in the Observer is that, like, we're placing a large amount of plastic and rubber and synthetic materials out in the environment. And the reason we're doing that is because the field is wet and people can't play on it, and they want something to play on for, to extend the season. But the field is wet, there's water traveling through this area, which means it's probably gonna, I mean, I defer to Eric on this, but it means it's probably gonna run off somewhere. And that's gonna go somewhere, like, that's gonna go into the environment and go into the streams, and there's wells in Heinsberg. That was in the initial Observer article, was concerns about the wells in town that serve Heinsberg Community School, I think, and several institutions that serve Heinsberg residents and some children, including, so, and there's health aspects to that too, which I feel I also have some strong feelings, although that's not necessarily the Conservation Commission's purview. I mean, I don't really know who in the town would.
I mean, we
Would
care
speak to
about
that,
E.
but-
coli growing in the Allen Brook, even though it's not probably having a huge effect on species using, I don't know, sometimes the health things, health risks, health hazards, do
It's all
come up.
connected, like, it's.
Yeah,
it's all connected,
We
but,
care about potential for pets getting caught in snare traps.
Yeah.
Even though that's a health hazard, not so much, and anyway, so we do sometimes talk about those
Yeah.
things.
no, that they're connected, no doubt. But
I'm-
I brought this to the committee as, this is something that I'm concerned about. To me, it doesn't seem like a good idea to put a whole bunch of plastic, et cetera. And even if the company says there's no PFAS, there's just gonna be something else. I mean, time and time again, you see this, like, no
Plastics.
BPA in baby bottles, and then there's BPS, and that, like, it's just not a reasonable solution to say, well, we don't have this one chemical that, people have been chasing for a while because has endocrine disruptor, forever chemical, et cetera. It just doesn't seem like a good idea to me at CVU or really anywhere, but probably especially at CVU because of the amount of water that we can expect that they're not gonna stay in place. And so then as a new member, I also brought this up because I was curious if we ever weigh in on things like this. This isn't in our town. And I think that that's where that we kind of left that conversation when I brought this up a few months ago. It's like, well, if it's in our town, then we will, really be taking a close look at it to see, if there would be runoff into streams, et cetera. But this isn't in our town, but it's in our school district. And so I'm still not clear or whether there's any precedent for how we respond to a situation like this.
Yeah, so I wanted to hear the conversation, but my baseline feeling is, it's not the Conservation Commission's place to write a letter to the school district about a proposal for something in Heinsberg. However, in the past, commissioners have decided that the issue is interesting to them on a personal basis, and they've written things or reached out or attended meetings in Heinsberg to share their perspectives, and their expertise. But it is not, I don't think would be far-fetched at all to expect a proposal for a turf field in Williston in the next 10 years. And so I think having the conversation is important, and following the conversation is important, because we will be much better prepared when something like that does come forward. I mean, there's already been in the newspaper and discussions with various groups about potentially having a bubble, an indoor field with a bubble over it at Taft Corners. Which is like, okay, well, is that significantly different, or is there still, potential for leaching? So there's all these questions that come up, and I think we will be better prepared if we have these conversations, even if the end result isn't that we send a letter as a commission. The topic's not gonna go away.
Well, what's the downside of sending a letter as a commission?
Sets a
It's
precedence.
or-
Well, it sets a precedence of opining on things that are not taking place within the Conservation Commission's purview. I
But
don't
it's
know if
our
that's-
school district.
Right, which is why I think personally I would write a letter, but I wouldn't have the Conservation Commission write a letter.
We have visibility into the Williston bylaws, and our sort of charter sort of begins and ends with giving developers feedback on those pursuant to the bylaws, right? So it's like, outside of those bylaws, we don't exist. And other than as like private entities, and as a member of the statewide Conservation Commission boards, that's kind of how.
I think that's not entirely true. I think that, if you look at the enabling statute, the Conservation Commission is enabled to usually advise the town on all concerns relating to natural resources. And if you think of other towns, some towns don't have bylaws like Williston does. But they're still, allowed to have a conservation commission. That conservation commission can communicate to town leadership recommendations. They can advocate for natural resource stuff in the community or concerns. They can commission studies. They can accept donations. They can set up, for ERF type fund, things like that that are enabled in statute. So I do believe you could look past the bylaw more generally. My sense is that with a conversation like this, the way that enabling statute was written, was not necessarily thinking about school district consolidation and all of that. So I kind of see it as a personal judgment call. There are definitely conservation commissions that wouldn't think twice about writing a letter to weigh in on something like this. But I think it is also a completely reasonable opinion to as Reed expressed, say, I think it's something that we shouldn't as a matter of practice weigh in on, but it could be personal. So that's my general take, is that this kind of request, something that's a little bit tangential.
Yeah, that's it.
But still, broadly related to your concerns in Williston, is just kind of a judgment call for you all.
I mean, as a sort of getting to what you were saying, Dave, is that if we're not weighing in on our bylaws here, but conservation commissions across the state can opine on other matters.
Good practice, or
Yeah, I mean, so the Heinsberg Conservation Commission did weigh in on this. And they have jurisdiction on this, and Eric, I see your hand, I'll get to it in a second, sorry. I'll just say, if we wanted to, we could support the Heinsberg Conservation Commission and encourage the school district to meet with them, who has perhaps more jurisdiction over the exact placement of this, and we could just say that we would encourage you to meet with them and work on this proposal with their coordination, because we share the same concerns. Like, I would feel comfortable as a commission sort of making a deferral to the Conservation Commission of jurisdiction in this particular township. Like, that might be the extent to it, because I'm not the expert, but it does sort of well, anyways, it might scratch an itch. Go ahead, Eric.
Thanks, Dave. I think that was well said. I agree with everything that you were saying. And or Heinsberg Conservation Commission is the commission that has jurisdiction here. And I think a supporting role for us would be the way to go. What I was raising my hand about was to make the point that we could, and I think it might be good to do this anyway, bring in or invite in a representative from the Vermont Conservation Commission Association, or Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions, whatever it is, and have them just come do a general introduction of what that group is across a statewide organization, and then ask them for their perspective on how, if, and when conservation commissions from one town engage in issues in other towns, and also whether or not the Vermont Association, whatever the heck that is, Association of Conservation Commissions, would themselves weigh in on this issue.
I think that's a great idea. And the idea of sort of not interfering directly, but like a letter of support or concern, or outlining, we don't have jurisdiction over it, but we are, it sounds like, or at least some of us are concerned about the effects of this on the environment and on health.
Yeah, and another option in addition to those would be to did I read somewhere? Sorry, my Zoom is all messed up. I can't figure out where the heck anything is. Did I read somewhere that Andrea is on the Willis or Heinsberg Conservation Commission? Well, anyway, we could ask the Heinsberg. We could connect with the Heinsberg Conservation Commission, ask them if they would be able to host this particular topic on an upcoming agenda. Maybe even be able to get a representative from the school district there, and invite area conservation commission members to attend and provide their feedback as perhaps not as representatives of their conservation commissions or their towns rather, but as interested individuals who could share that perspective.
Who's Dave? Who's Cheryl? What is Cheryl Dorsher?
Cheryl's a Williston resident and
Okay.
active volunteer. I know Cheryl from the Nest Watch program primarily, so Cheryl's very active at Catamount, the bird monitoring program there. Nest Watch, monitoring and doing maintenance on all the different bird boxes. Primarily for tree swallows, eastern bluebirds.
Vermont Master Naturalist.
Yes, yeah.
So Cheryl is not coming to us from the Heinsberg.
No, Cheryl's coming as a resident of Williston
Yeah,
to the Williston Conservation Commission.
thank you.
Uh,
Okay, had a good discussion. Anything more? We do need to wrap this up and probably come up with some next steps now.
I feel like everybody seems to be in agreement that we should make contact with the Heinsberg Conservation Commission. So we at least make the connection, and also there seems to be support for Eric's suggestion of getting a connection going with the State Association of Conservation Commissions, who might be able to give us some more information about how commissions tend to weigh in on things that cross borders.
So the letter requests us to take a meeting with Andrea Morganti. We could amend that to say we would welcome Andrea at a future meeting to speak more about the specifics of the project. We would ask that she bring a member of the Heinsberg Conservation Commission who voted, as sort of like a point of contact for them. I would also like to see the resolution that Heinsberg wrote as sort of like a follow-up to this discussion. Because what we have here is just a very interesting and informative letter, but I would like to see what Heinsberg actually voted to submit to the school district, because in my mind, that would be an easy first step for us to just vote a resolution in favor of that letter to sort of show our support. How that would be communicated to the school district, I don't know. I also just have questions about this project, but I don't know if it's my place.
I know you wanted to move on, just a couple other quick thoughts. Maybe to communicate to Heinsberg Conservation Commission is CVU does have an environmental action club made up of students interested in taking action on whatever. But anyway, that might be another group for them to engage with. And just in my looking around about it, they also apparently work closely, or had a student who worked closely with Sustainable Williston, and that might be a better voice on behalf of Williston than the Conservation Commission to share concerns around this project. Because that's not the Sustainable Williston is entirely I'm just not remembering how it's chartered or whatever. Is it just entirely volunteer, or is it it's not like an advisory group like we are to the town, right?
I don't think it would hold the same weight. I mean, it wouldn't hold, it's just like a group of people.
Right. But they've done a lot in Williston, and have at least in Williston, in my mind, in my perspective, have a pretty strong voice around those issues. And can do and say more in terms of advocacy than an advisory group to the town can.
My concern about kind of putting some of this weight on CVU students is that does put them in a difficult position. We have the superintendent who's coming out and saying, we really need this because it's about connection and it's a place where we can all be together, which has nothing to do with the field. It's just that there's bleachers and lights there that are also coming with this. So like you can still all be together if you don't have the turf field. So it does, I would hesitate to put students in this role of advocating against it, because this is their community, and there's some strong voices, well-respected voices that are pushing for it. So that would, I mean, they can do what they want, but I don't think that it's their burden to really, I mean, they're high school students. So the most important thing to them is belonging, and I don't think it's fair I mean, they can be involved if
Yeah.
they want, but I think we have a separate role.
I think it's fair to say that the Conservation Commission doesn't have any objections to field improvements and Friday night lights level of, activity. I think really our point is just gonna be, you can do whatever project you want. It's the turf, right? That's the sort of, that is, if we're gonna weigh in on anything, it would just be whether or not turf should be the sort of preferred.
Mhm.
And where I
Right.
struggle is I don't know the Heinsberg topography, hydrology, water use.
Other than there appears to be a stream that goes directly through the
Yeah.
field.
But like it looks concerning, but I just try to think like, how would I feel if another town's conservation commission opined on something that's going on at Williston,
Like our bridge,
maybe in opposition to the views of our conservation commission.
like the Allenbrook Bridge.
And it not being their town, like it would feel weird, it would feel like, wait, why is the Essex Conservation
Mhm.
Commission speaking out on an issue from a different perspective than, but I don't know, it just feels weird.
I don't feel like that we're doing that. I think like if anything, our role would be to support the
Yeah.
Heinsberg
So in this case, we're
Conservation Commission
supporting.
if we agree with, I mean, that's like the first step is what did they say and what are
Yeah.
the issues here? And if we agree to lend support, like, I
Yes.
think that's where we are. It doesn't, there's concerns, but we don't know all the details.
Yeah,
Is it possible that sort of like getting a whole meeting scheduled around this and, having, calling in guests and everything, that as just like could we just get what Heinsberg submitted?
I think that's a good place to, and based on the conversation
Mhm.
today,
Yeah.
like a lot of perspectives and ideas, but not necessarily definitive action points. So my recommendation will be, I think I can facilitate putting the chair and vice chair in touch with some folks from Heinsberg. We'll see if we can get access to that and then continue the conversation.
Great. Let's table this for now and call it a day because it's 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone. Busy meeting.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, Mark. Have a good one. Man, these muffins are
concerned about the
like.
turf,
Yeah,
they're so
I'm concerned about the turf.